Welcome to Lesson 7.1, the Geography and Early Settlement of China. Our learning target for this lesson is, I will explain the ways in which geography affected the development of civilization in ancient China. Our success criteria for this lesson are, I can describe the geography of China's regions and analyze how each region's physical features, climate, and vegetation affect daily life. I can locate the Huanghe Valley and explain why Chinese civilization originated there. I can explain how China's geographic features isolated it from the rest of the world. Our essential questions for this lesson are, how did geography affect life in ancient China? And how are the beginnings of Chinese civilization similar to and different from those of other civilizations we have studied? All right, so some background information. First of all, China is the oldest continuous civilization in the history of the world, okay? Which is impressive because we can date it back at least as far as roughly ancient Greece. Geographically, China is a very complex place, having forests, plains, deserts, rivers, and mountains. We're going to look at that on the next slide here for a little bit. Okay. The result of this geographic diversity and long span of time has been a cycle of strong and weak governments that historians call the dynastic cycle. And basically, in a nutshell, what it describes is the establishment of a dynasty, its building up of its strength, then its crumble and fall, and ends with a period of chaos before the establishment of a new dynasty. So the length of those stages are going to vary from dynasty to dynasty, but they all go through them. Okay? They all go through them. And then it's worth knowing that the earliest civilizations in China start around the Yangtze and the Huanghe rivers in the North China plain. All right, so as promised, here's a map of modern China. Right, so we've got, this is the Yellow River, is also called the Huanghe River. So that's it right there. This one right here that runs kind of sort of parallel to it for parts is the Yangtze River. Okay. And this right here is the North China Plain. So it's relatively flat, the climate is relatively mild, and it's got good water access with the rivers, right? And that's an important feature to think about. Remember, with all of most of the other civilizations we've looked at, right? They start out along rivers. So just some other geographic features to call your attention to. This area up here, up by Mongolia, this is the Gobi Desert. Okay. So that's an area that's very dry. Because it's so far north, it's not the same kind of hot like we tend to think of with deserts, but it's very dry and there's not a lot of plant life there. Okay. And then as you can see, we've got some mountains here. Right. These are the Himalaya mountains right here, which are the tallest mountains in the world. So they form this really formidable natural border that isn't allowing a lot of trade or a lot of interaction back and forth across it. Right? It's not that it doesn't happen, it just doesn't happen as much. And because most of the other early civilizations that we're looking at are down south, so they're not this far north, what you're going to find is that they are, China's very, very isolated in a way that the other civilizations aren't. So if you look, like this is the kind of the corner of India, modern day India right here, right? And if we were to go further to the left, then we would run into Mesopotamia, we'd run into Greece and Rome, right, into Egypt. But China's incredibly isolated. And so what that means is that they're developing almost completely independently. Not totally so, but almost completely so, with a lot less interaction with outsiders. And that leads to a certain level of insularity that you'll see. Right? So we've got, like I said, we've got the Himalayas that are this huge natural border. We've also got, there's plenty of plains, right? A basin, this is going to be up high. So it's kind of like a plain, but it's up high and it's kind of in between mountains. Right? So there's a lot of geographic diversity, and that makes communication hard. So if you think back to when I was talking about that dynastic cycle a few minutes ago, right? When dynasties are strong, they're able to communicate easily because they're doing things like maintaining roads, and they've got strong leaders that are able to handle the day-to-day in various parts of the empire. And then when the dynasties are weak, they're not doing things that maintain that communication and help maintain that control, right? So maybe the local administrators are weak leaders, or they're corrupt, or both. It might be much harder to communicate or get a response from the emperor and things like that. Right, so this geography is going to be very, very important as we're learning about China. All right, so our assignment for this week, you're going to be working in TCI, which I know is your favorite. What I'm going to have you do for my gray level, we're going to go the introduction, sections 1 to 6, and the summary. For the blue level, you're going to do the same thing as the gray level, but we're going to add 7 and 8. Okay, so it'll be the introduction, sections 1 through 8, and the summary. And then for the black level, we're going to do all 9 sections. So it'll be the introduction, sections 1 through 9, and the summary. And remember, as always, you're aiming for 4 to 4.5 hours this week. Level up or down as you need to keep it within that range. To go ahead and wrap it up, again, our learning target for the week is that you can explain the ways in which geography affected the development of civilization in ancient China. Our success criteria for this lesson are: I can describe the geography of China's regions and analyze how each region's physical features, climate, and vegetation affect daily life. I can locate the Huanghe Valley and explain why Chinese civilization originated there. And I can explain how China's geographic features isolated it from the rest of the world. Our essential questions for this lesson are: how did geography affect life in ancient China? And how are the beginnings of Chinese civilization similar to and different from those of other civilizations that we have studied? All right, go ahead and keep scrolling down and you'll find the link to the assignment.